32. Yes, you've been eagerly waiting for 2 minutes. Sorry to hold you up. Complicated business, folks. We are recording. We are streaming. The chat room is eagerly waiting. And we will count down to Studio 8 in... Okay, we're here. I had no... You know how time gets away from you from time to time? Folks, I'm so sorry to keep you waiting, but believe me, it will be worth it, because now, normally on Wednesday night at this time, we would have Michelle Medlock Adams, but she has done us a favor and gotten somebody that we had last time she was out to come back for a sort of a... encore presentation, and you all remember and all loved it last time when Shannon Anderson came and told us all about her Deed a Day ministry. And do you actually do a Deed a Day, or is that something you just did for a little while?
We did it for a whole year, where we recorded it, and now we still seek to do, blessings each day. We just don't sit down and record them like we did before. Okay,
because you're not writing another book. Or are you? I don't know.
I'm working on a lot of books.
Well, I can see doing a deed a day, or a deed now and then, but if you do one every day, let me guess, the first day, the first week is not so hard, and then the second week's pretty easy. Third week, you got to think about it a little bit. Mm-hmm. Well, you're a long way from a year. So around, week number 7, how are you doing coming up with ideas?
That's the thing. It took us a while. We had some rough patches, but we would come up with things, and sometimes we wouldn't come up with it until the moment, an idea popped in our head, and other times we would have something planned ahead of time. I can share a couple of very sweet little deeds that happened to me just in the last 2 days. So today, I was gone running an errand, and the mail lady came, and she often, if I'm at home when she comes, my dog Maisie loves anyone at the door. She'll make sure and greet her by name and pet her and everything. And today I was gone on an errand when she came. And when I came back, she had a package for me and some letters. And she had put a rubber band around them. And then on the top, she put a little milk bone for Maisie. And so that was really sweet. So even though I wasn't there, and Maisie, was probably going nuts at the door when she came, that was just a sweet little gesture that made me smile, and knew that she was, thinking to do something sweet that day. And yesterday I had something really special happen, where these girls got a hold of me, and they said, what is your favorite kind of ice cream? And I said, well, honestly, I don't eat a lot of sugar, but my daughter's favorite ice cream is cookie dough. And they said, well, we're going to deliver some cookie dough ice cream to you, so we need your address. And I knew these girls. They're actually missionaries in our town. Mm-hmm. And so I gave them my address, and they showed up with a carton of cookie dough ice cream. And they had this note on the top of the ice cream. And it says, "Dough all things in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God and the Father." So that was just so cool that, they just did it to spread some joy. And it did, because when Maddie got home, she was thrilled that there was some cookie dough ice cream in the freezer for her. And I shared the Post-it note that was on the top. And so we both thought that made it even more special. But those girls just really inspire me. And so anytime something like that happens, just a little milk bone on my mail, or some ice cream that maybe cost a few dollars, but that someone just wanted to bless someone else, can make a big difference in your day and in your mood, and just renew your faith in humankind, that there are sweet people out there that want to spread joy and love.
Now, this is your second time on pjnet.tv, and both times you have attempted to get Maddie to be your sidekick? And the answer was no.
Yeah.
I'm actually very impressed with the second thing that you mentioned. Especially the handwritten note and the takeoff on dough. But on the first one, Shannon, I see that you're not a dumb blonde, but you surely don't think that the post office delivery person doesn't always have a stock of milk buns. They didn't go get that special. I'm sure they have a good. Remember the old days of the meter reader? Remember when we had those? Well, my father worked for the power company, and one of his friends was the meter reader, and he had ways of making friends with the dogs. And like
Yeah,
that.
I guess you need to have either a bag of treats or some pepper spray, one or the other.
Or wouldn't hurt to have both, I suspect.
Yeah, I guess.
And but anyway, it's I don't know how long it's been. I guess probably the better part of a month has gone by. Now, in addition, it seems like anybody that writes books, they seem to, whether they want to or not, get invited to speak. And you're going to be speaking very soon. I think next week, you said.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm speaking at a church in southern Indiana, and it is for a ladies group. And my talk is perfectly imperfect.
Well, you're an expert on the subject. I guess. How often do you get to speak?
Well, I've been speaking. This is an actual in-person event, so I'm excited about that. But I've been doing a lot of virtual visits, so mostly for teaching conferences, and I have some writing conferences coming up where I'll be doing some instruction. I do have an in-person picture book boot camp this coming weekend that I'll be teaching aspiring writers how to craft picture books and the business side of that. But yeah, most of my speaking has been virtual events recently, a lot of teaching events.
From someone who's actually written some children's books and had them published, how many people come to these things thinking children's books, that's easy. There's just not that many pages, not many words, right? Piece of cake.
Right. That was part of my inspiration for having it. I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and said, "Oh, I wrote this children's story, and I just need you to tell me how to make it into a book." And I'm like, well, it's more than a couple hours of conversation. It took me years to figure all of that out. And so if you looked in my kitchen right now, where I've been kind of setting up camp and getting ready for this, I have stacks and stacks of books of my own from my own collection. And I went to the library today to get even more, and just to have mentor texts and examples for them to look at. But yeah, I wanted to be able to offer something to show all of the aspects of picture book writing. And some people think it's so easy because it's short, but because they're around 500 to 700 words, every word has to count. And so you have to make sure that you're choosing your words wisely. And so it's kind of tricky.
Well, of course, if you want to have a biblical theme, propitiation, probably not a good word to include.
Right. Yeah, especially with your little kids as your audience. They may not.
Yeah, here's your memory verse. Jesus wept. Can you remember that one? So, in writing picture books, obviously, now you're not an artist. Are you an artist?
I enjoy doing art. I am not a professional illustrator, no. Okay,
illustrator, I think was the word I was looking for. If you're going to do a kid's book, that's obviously a big part of one of the major ingredients in the recipe. How much thought goes into that aspect, that element of the book, in the writing, in wordsmithing the book? Are you getting the pictures in your mind as you're wordsmithing, or is it literally an afterthought? Here, add some pictures to this.
So with traditional publishing, when you submit your manuscript or your story, then they choose the illustrator for you. And especially with the picture book, it's really 50-50. And sometimes you don't even know who your illustrator is until much later in the process.
Mhm.
And so they don't want us stepping on each other's toes. So I'm not to give instruction to the illustrator unless there's something that's really needed. Like if there's something going on a page that you would miss what's happening if you didn't see a certain picture of something, then you would put an illustrator note, but they like to keep those to a minimum so that you're not stepping on the illustrator's toes, because they also add so much to the story, even more so than the pictures. It's through their vision of the book that they add other things.
I'm not even in this, but I'm kind of a big Elton John fan, you know. And I assure you that Elton John would be unheard of if it weren't for a guy named Bernie Taupin. Do you know who Bernie Taupin is?
I don't.
Do you know who Elton John is?
Yes.
Okay, that you just proved my point.
I proved your point.
Who wrote all the music that Elton John performed?
Must not have been Elton, huh?
Bernie Taupin. And the funny thing, and I don't know how this industry works, but they seldom communicated. Yeah. And I kind of get the same sense in the relationship between children book writers and the illustrators. There's not a whole lot. That's not a. It's a joint venture in a financial sense, in a business sense, but it's not a. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not a collaborative effort.
Collaboration. Yeah.
Is that right? I mean, that just seems bizarre to me. But when you got an 8-year-old audience, maybe they don't your audience doesn't pontificate these things, do they? They just spill milk on the book.
Well, you have someone called an art director, and so they are taking the text and they are directing the illustrator and helping in that way. And the editor is, helping me with the text, but the art director is helping the illustrator. But then they work together to make sure it all meshes.
Well, there's just a lot of fingers in this pie here.
Yes.
As I see it there. Yeah. No wonder people that typically write children's books write many of them, because you have to, because you have to sell 1 million copies to buy a Starbucks. Anyway,
That's right.
it seems that way. You are, God has really placed you in a position that teaching is your calling. And just wanted to kind of check in and see how the academic world is going with all that is going on. What changes, and what's the future look like?
Oh, wow. Well, as you know, I'm on sabbatical this year, so I'm not in the classroom. So it's different for me on the outside, especially with this year. It's so different not knowing what's going on within the school buildings, except for, like the experiences that my daughter shares. But I can tell you that there is a huge push for social and emotional learning in the classroom to help these kids to deal with some of the emotional roller coaster they're going through with all of the unknowns and with different cancellations and not knowing from one day to the next, are we going to be at school, or is my best friend going to be gone for 2 weeks because they were turned in as a close contact, and grandpa's sick, or whatever it is. There are so many things that these kids are going through. And so there has been a big push for social and emotional instruction and lessons in the classroom. And that is one thing that I do speak about at a lot of these conferences for teachers. Most of my children's books are actually social and emotional topics. So one of my books, Penelope Perfect, is about a perfectionist, which again, is my topic for next week, is talking about being perfectly imperfect. Then I also have one about an underachiever. I have 2 on growth mindset. I have one coming out on shyness. So I just kind of have a heart for helping kids to deal with their different behaviors, I guess, and how those are coming out, even though, like, for example, if you have a kid that is acting bossy, that could potentially be a great leadership skill hidden in that. They just don't know how to socially appropriately manage that skill that's not coming out. The bossiness is coming out instead. And so helping teachers to figure out the ways to work with the social and emotional needs of these kids. And so that's why I like to write books about these topics, because it launches great conversations where the kids are seeing a character go through the situation instead of themselves. And then you can talk very openly about, okay, so when Penelope, when this happened to her and she thought the day was just completely ruined because it started out horribly, what, and you can just ask so many questions and get them to talk about it. And I think in that way, we're able to deal with some of those underlying issues that kids are feeling.
Well, I studied psychology at the People's Republic of Florida State, and a lot of psychological concerns, when you blow all of the academia away from, kind of clear, just get down to the common sense. A lot of the emotional and social problems that not only children, but adults mask it a little better, gets down to healthy self-esteem. Now that sounds good, doesn't it? We all need healthy self-esteem. The problem is self-esteem in excess becomes narcissism,
right,
and delusional. And on the other side, it becomes, you become an underachiever. And the model that I found best to not fix the problem, but at least understand the problem, is there are really 3 yous. The people of the you that other people think you are, the person you think you are, and who you really are. Now, there's always going to be a gap. There's going to be a range in there. So the closer that range is, the more socially adaptable, functional, it's considered good. If that range is very wide, well, you're probably psychotic. I mean, so I have a difficult time. I certainly understand this at the socio-psychological level, but I'm older than you are, Shannon. None of that crap existed with me going to school. You did your lesson and you took your test and you went outside for recess and beat up all the,
Yeah.
Were we misguided?
I don't know. It's a different world we live in now.
But I'm living in that world too, I mean, come on.
I know.
I mean, girls practice cheerleading, and boys played ball, during recess. Is recess even a thing anymore?
It is, but it's in quadrants now. You get to play with your germ buddies. I shouldn't laugh, but that's truly what it is. The kids are they are broken into sections, and they're each week or two, they have a different section of the playground that they're allowed to play with the kids that they've been exposed to.
See, we didn't have that problem because they dusted us down with DDT before we came back inside.
Yeah,
Maybe that's what's wrong with us.
It's just very limited.
I don't know. Yeah, speaking of teaching, one of the best experiences I had when I began to realize how gifted my teachers were and how dedicated they were is my 5th grade teacher, Stonewall Patterson, we called her, said, Mark, during recess, I want you to write down on the blackboard during recess all of the professional football teams, because she knew I loved football.
Uh-huh.
Oh man, and I read and their nicknames, the Green Bay Packers, So man, I was up there just showing her how smart I was. I didn't know she was setting up a geography lesson for cities in the United States where they were located. Now I had to locate them on a map. I think a lot of teaching, and I'm not a teacher. You are. Give me your take on that. What was that a good teaching technique or what?
Absolutely. Yes. In my book, Coasting Casey, that's what I talk about. It's an underachiever, but when someone realizes his passion, which his happens to be music and art, then he can combine that with the things that he's not achieving in because he's not interested at all. And so when you can combine someone's passion with something that maybe they're not as excited about, then that is really going to be motivating for them. For example, I don't like to dust, but if I can crank up the music in my house and I can kind of dance while I'm dusting, then it's a little bit more fun, right? So if we can take something that we're passionate about, like for you with the football teams, and tie that into a lesson in a meaningful way, and that's going to be a memorable thing for you too. So obviously, I mean, you still remember it. So yes, I think that's genius.
It was. I had an experience with my daughter who was struggling with vocabulary. And she had to, you got the word test. You got to spell and define certain words, and she had done poorly in the previous test, and we were, it was stressing her out. And it must have been 9 p.m., which is kind of late for her age to be up, and she's just, I could tell she was distressed. And I said, well, here, let's take a look at this list of words. I said, I'll tell you what, let's play a game. Let's write a story using each of the words. You got to use every word in that list. Well, she was up till 11:30, loving it. And she got herself up and rubbed the crust out of her eyes and went in that class, and the teacher was blown away and began adopting this technique as a teaching method, because now I think the challenge, I think everybody can learn. I think the challenge is the teaching. Make teaching fun and learning. It's sort of like work. Do the work you love. You'll never work a day in your life.
That's right.
And I'm so blessed. I love this. Tonight my wife had to call me. Are you going to eat? I thought, is it really 7:30? It's great. Well, Shannon, when is sabbatical over? Is it after this school year?
Well, I took this whole year off, and my main thing is I wanted to do author visits, and I haven't been able to do any of them. I mean, with the exception of some virtual pop-ins to classrooms. And so I'm considering taking another year to be able to hopefully next year do that. I'm not for sure. But I've been, kind of like you, I'm so enjoying my time getting to do, like today, I taught a writing club in the park. So every Wednesday for the last few months, I've been teaching writing to a group of kids. Some of them are homeschooled and some of them just chose the virtual option from public school. And I get to write with them every Wednesday in the park, spaced out at picnic tables. And so I got to do that today. And I got to Zoom with a fellow author and speaker. And here I am talking to you and having a great time being able to hang out in the chat room with some wonderful people and then get to share with you. So I'm just really enjoying the blessings and the opportunities that are coming each day, even though I don't ever know what the day is going to bring. And so I'm hoping to take another year and be able to continue to explore and see,
Well, I think a reasonable next step would be we'll schedule you for, 3 or 4 weeks out, but not on a Wednesday. We'll schedule it for like a Thursday or a Tuesday, something like that. And then 2 hours before we go on the air, you call Michelle and say, "Oh, I can't make it."
So do they call that? Is it pinch hitting or pitch hitting? I think it's pinch hitting, isn't it?
Baseball. Don't girls play that sport, don't they?
We need Dell. Is Dell in the chat room?
Yeah. Well, any athletic competition that is played by females as well as males, I don't know anything about it. If they don't have an ambulance standing by at the field of play, I'm not interested.
It's a sissy sport, right?
It's got to be dangerous. I don't know is the answer. Oh gosh, I'll live in it's. I had a funny thought concerning the word pinch. I think it is pinch. The pitcher is the position. He's the guy that throws the ball. He's the pitcher, and a pinch hitter, I think, is someone brought in just for. He's sort of the specialist guy, or I don't even like the game. I don't care what they do. They can do anything they want to. It's boring. It's a waste of time. And if these guys are athletes, I mean, look at some of these men. They're like, what are you going to call here? Everybody's number should be 44 to match their waist size. I mean, it should be. He got trying to run around the bases, slopping around. You can tell I love. Actually, George Carlin, folks, this is for everybody. George Carlin, who was, by the way, a pretty good comedian, has a skit, a stand-up routine that he does that is perfectly safe to show in church. There is no innuendo, no cursing, no nothing. And it's baseball versus football. And when I first saw that video, I said, he has been eavesdropping on my conversations. He nails it. He nails it why baseball is such a wimpy game. Anyway, well, it's been a lot of fun, Shannon, and it's always good to have you on. And you're pretty talented, for 2 weeks or 2 hours of notice, which, by the way, is more than some other Michelle pinch hitters got. You did pretty good. Another thing is, next time we do this, now let's how can we bait Maddie in? And trick her. What you can do is just take the laptop to where she is as we're broadcasting. You're on,
That's true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That'd be real interesting.
Get her to play ukulele and sing something. I don't know.
Well, tell Maddie she really missed an opportunity tonight. But Shannon, you have blessed our hearts. Thank you so much. We appreciate your joy and your love for the Lord and your love to help other people and so forth. And just great to have you. Had a great time tonight.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, do it. Folks, that's going to wrap it up for PJ Net. Hi, how you doing over there? Here, don't look, okay? We got more cameras than Custer had Indians in this studio, and it is so much fun playing with all these techno toys. Folks, it's been a great evening, and I hope that your burden has been lightened a bit. I know that many of us are carrying a burden right now, okay? We're just not going to go there, okay? Cope with it, okay? I don't drink anymore, but I'm thinking about taking the habit up again, okay? Folks, it's great to know that we can have fun together and be an encouragement. The challenge, I guess, for the deed for the day tomorrow is be an encouragement to a brother or sister in Christ. It's really easy. Can you do that? Come on. I need some encouragement. Send me some. All right. That'll work. Folks, before we leave, I'd like to ask you to ask yourself 2 serious questions. We got to get through this. We're going to get through this. Here's how. Ask yourself this. Number 1, what is the boldest thing that you have ever done for Jesus Christ? And if you're able to answer that question to your satisfaction, ask yourself the next question, which is, how long ago was that? Folks, don't be in despair, but we are fighting a spiritual battle. The end has already been secured. But in the meantime, we are needing to be bold. So never allow yourself to be satisfied with either answer.